Hi everybody, Larry Vela here from Bell Lost Souls. Today we are going to take a look at the Iron Kingdoms role-playing game from Privateer Press, and this is a really exciting product from them. We're working on it for a long time, and let's take a look. It's kind of a return to the roots for Privateer Press. There was an old RPG that kind of started them initially, and that predates War Machine, and now we're back with the new, improved, all modern and updated role-playing game. So what we have here, let's take a look at the book. First of all, we got 360-page book. You can see it. It's a big large one right here, hardcover, just like you expect, the exact same kind of fit and finish as you see from all the Privateer Press books these days. It is full color. Like I was saying, 360 pages. It is lavishly laid out, as you can see, with art and illustrations. It is, and let's take a look at it. So, first things off, what exactly is this book? So this is the big, this is role-playing in the Iron Kingdoms. So we'll take a look at the table of contents here to get us started. We have a rough breakdown. This book is really impressive. What we have here is, first off, we have this history of Western Moran and life in the Iron Kingdoms. What we have here, basically, we have 80 pages of solid background. And this isn't, lots of pictures. This is pages like this. I mean, it's all here. There's always been, we all, gamers always say that we like, that what really draws and binds us to game systems is the background and fluff. We want to be able to be immersed in it. And all of that, there's this huge amount of background in the Privateer Press universe. It's just that a lot of it was out of print, or so we see the storylines continuing, and we see these factions at war with each other and all their politics as we read all the stories from the various War Machine books. But unless you had access to kind of a lot of this older printed material, you never got kind of the baseline, hey, how does it all work? What are the nations? We got the really quick, the little quick and dirty summaries in the main War Machine and Hordes books, but this is the book right here that really goes into all of it, and it is really impressive. So we'll just kind of dive into that. You get, your section on character generation, on how to actually play the game, magic, items, effectively, how jacks work. Of course, there's going to be a whole section on that, because that is kind of one of the big hallmarks of this entire game system, and then how to GM and do all that. So let's kind of take a closer look. So first of all, welcome to the Iron Kingdoms. Here we go. We're into kind of our first section. 80 pages of background. We have maps. We have the world, Western Moran as it is now. And then they take you all the way back. They take you back starting in way prehistory and cosmology, everything you would expect out of a classic fantasy role-playing game. So we get in here and we deal with all those things that they always kind of hint at, talk about the edges. Here it's all laid out so that everyone understands it. What is you get the creation of the universe. You get all the various gods. What are the different views of reincarnation versus death versus all the different races? How do the different pantheons work? How do they come with? How do they actually interact? What are the origins of all the races? And it goes through the whole thing. I mean, it starts at, I want to say, there you go. It starts at 10,000 BR, which is before the revolution against the Orgoth. So it's going all the way back. 10,000 BR all the way to the actual revolution, then up to the current era of the game, which is in 608 AR. And it's everything. You get to see, the initial foundings of all the different races, how time worked, and then lots of the little kind of fiddly details that are going to be really handy for a role-playing game setting, where, you don't just want the general history, but you want those nitty-gritty details. How do people tell time? How do people, how does the calendar work? How do, how are the gods venerated by various races? What are the, all the various social taboos? And it goes and goes and goes. The entire story of Moro and Thamar, right there, going. The origins of dragons and Krix, the Orgoth. There's that many pages before you even get to the Orgoth, which happened, by chronological standards in this universe, that was, almost 1,000 years ago. And then you get detailed history of all that and kind of how it all went down, and then you get into the modern era. And then, off it goes. And, it just keeps on going and going. It is really impressive. Daily life in the Iron Kingdoms, how it all works. So then you get to, so that's prehistory. Now you actually get to the actual main where the characters are going to be adventuring in. So that just gives you an idea of the level of depth and detail that this is going into. Then you get all the individual Iron Kingdoms, the nation states, how they all interact, politics, culture, all the different races, and there's a lot of them. There's a huge section here on languages, including ancient and dead languages, because some of these things you're going to be able to get skills at. Languages of the various races, transportation, magic. I'm just skipping kind of over all the different subtypes of magic, including things that we don't normally see on the board game, but that we know from the background are there, that you can have classes in. How the church works. These are different symbols. Here's an example of a page. Some symbols and patronages of the ascendants of Moro. That's just one. And of Daimar. All the different churches. How they're worshipped, how they're venerated, the relationships between the various churches, even of various races, and then we're done with all the backgrounds. We're on page 104 here. Now we get into character generation. It is a role-playing game, so huge meaty section, about 60 pages here. How to generate your stats. You check your race. We got humans, dwarves, gobbers, Iozan, Nis. Nice. I don't know. I'm going to go with Nis. Ogren and Trollkin. You pick 4 archetypes. So you pick your race, you pick your 4 archetypes: gifted, intellectual, mighty, and skilled. And then after which kind of set the general kind of overall high level things that your character is going to be good at. And then you choose careers after that. And you get to choose 2. And there's almost 30 careers in here, going from alchemist all the way down to warcaster. And there's just a ton of them. And and here anyone who plays the board game, who plays War Machine or Hordes is going to be very familiar with lots of these. You get Fell Callers, Highwaymen, Gun Mages, Iron Fang Investigators, Military Officers, Soldiers, Spies, Thieves, of course, what everyone was waiting for, Warcasters. But you do have even on the same page you get guys as from Trenchers all the way to Warcasters. There is no best way to do this. How your stats work, how you're gonna gain experience, all kind of that normal stuff. Here's a list of all the different abilities, just so you can see. Look how tiny that print is. Just huge amounts of abilities and what they all do over here. Let's get past that. How it all works, how you roll dice. The interesting thing about the actual let me get over here to the actual playing the game, because this is all still related to skills. Alright, so now we're on to the game. Once you're into the game section, we got about, this is the actual kind of the core mechanics, how you roll dice, how it all works, how you move, and how you fight, and do all that thing, whenever you're in the non-role-playing part of the game. You got about 30 pages here. This is going to be really, really familiar to anyone who plays War Machine or Hordes, which is interesting, because, you take a game, very similar to the way that if you play 40K, you can understand, even without knowing the nitty-gritty rules, you can kind of figure out how things work in fantasy, right? Because, those two Games Workshop games share, while they're different in the nitty-gritty mechanics of their systems, they share overall stats, and they share, the way certain stats interact. Same thing here. In Iron Kingdoms, you're dealing with the same types of stats that exist in War Machine and Hordes. You're rolling in the same way. It's this and the, it's D6 plus that to see if, you can get, over their, plus this stat to see if you can exceed, their defensive stat over here. So, it's the same types of mechanics. The scale and what those numbers are different, but the overall mechanics are very similar. So just as an example of things that, you would think would be be consistent between these two games. Let's just take a really, really quick look at combat and kind of talk about some of the things that you'll see in here, and we'll see if any of this sounds familiar to you guys who already know how War Machine and Hordes look. You're talking about movement. When you're moving, there's options for full advances, for running, for charging. You can do in actions. You can do 2 quick actions or a full action when you're and then lists of things you can do when you how do you attack. You're declaring targets, you're making your attack rolls. There's direct hits, point of how to resolve points of origin, melee attacks, back strikes, grappling, ranged attacks. Here's a list of all the ranged attack modifiers. Aiming bonuses, cloud effects, concealment, elevated attacker, engaged, target is knocked down. Some of these things sound familiar to anyone, because they certainly sound familiar to me. So, you know, I think it's nice in that it's bringing you the way the game works. Yes, it's a role-playing game. Yes, it has a much finer level of granularity in it compared to you know, a tabletop game, which of course, you know, it needs to, right? You know, this is a game where, you know, this is a role-playing game. It's, you know, it's about the intricate, detailed actions of a small group of people, as opposed to, you know, a warcaster and their you know, and all the forces under their command who are fighting another, you know, warcaster and forces under their command that War Machine Hordes represents. But you're in that same universe, you're rolling that same way, you have that same level of consistency, and I think that, you know, that's no coincidence. You know, as opposed to, say, the differences that we get in, say, Warhammer 40,000 versus Deathwatch, where the systems are just totally different. You know, and if you play one, you know, yes, they're set in the same universe, but effectively they're entirely different systems. Here, not so much. If you play one of these games and like it, it's going to be incredibly easy for you to transition into the other game. You know, you're just going to get it. It's going to make sense, which I think is a really, really good play on them from Privateer. You get a section on magic. You get about 10 pages on that, how it all works, kind of how magic works by its nature based on the different archetypes that you chose for your character, and then you get just all the spells. And let me tell you, these are all the spells. It goes and goes and goes. You can tell, lots of spells. Get a big, huge, meaty section, because it is a role-playing game here. Effectively, you know, items and gear. So this is just all the stuff you can buy, how it all works. This is the whole section that's going to talk about, you know, how you buy everything from you know, armor to spears to, you know, lodgings and horses and food and everything else. So, you know, every game system has to have it. It's a lot of boilerplate. There it all is. It does nicely incorporate a lot of the unique items that you're used to if you played War Machine and Horde. So you get to, you know, you get to see things like, you know, Manite staffs and Mage-lock pistols and, you know, all kinds of cool stuff in here. You know, trencher guns from the various races. So we'll get past this really quick, and then we will get on to the kind of the next kind of big distinctive thing that everyone is going to want to know about. You get a big meaty section here. You get about 25 pages on steam jacks. Of course, by the nature, you're not going to, these are going to get lavish attention, and they certainly do. So not only do you know, you get all of the anatomy and how they work, and just like the rules in and about how you deal with jacks are very detailed, and they're a very important part of War Machine. They're a huge important part in this role-playing game as well, and you just get all kinds of, except, you know, even more detailed. You know, how they all work, you get examples of them, you get, you know, all the different, you know, how much does it cost to buy and assemble and build these things. There's, you know, different levels of cortexes that can be purchased and what they do, and, you know, just huge amount, you know, and not only military, because, you know, this section is steam jacks. You get to see the entire breadth of these things as they exist in the Iron Kingdoms. It's not just the ones made for the military, which is kind of cool. And once you are done with that, with steam jacks, which, you know, they're pretty detailed, it goes all the way there, then you get kind of the boilerplate at the end. You get you know, the last 20-30 pages of this book are, you know, that standard stuff that you see in every role-playing game. So, you know, how do you actually run an adventure? What is a game master? How does it work? Difference between PCs versus game masters versus NPCs. You get a little mini bestiary in the back. I have absolutely no doubt that there's a big giant monster manual coming. You know, and then you get your character sheets, templates, and your master index in the back, and that is it. So that is, like I said, this is a pretty, you know, I'm really excited about this as a person who, you know, for people who like, just, if you're into role-playing games and you at all like or interested in War Machine or Privateer Press's products, you should definitely check it out. If you play War Machine, it is just, and think that the background is fantastic and want to know more about it, the book is worth it just for that. I mean, you know, like I was saying, almost 100 pages of this book is just detailed background, and it's really good detailed background. Even someone who is never going to play a role-playing game at all can completely use this game to help them understand that world better, help them build campaigns, help them build all kinds of neat things to give your War Machine games context, you know, and which is, you know, a huge part of why, you know, lots of people are why players are bound to you know, our various war game systems, as we really like kind of immersing ourselves in that universe. And so there it is. As I was saying, it's 360 pages. It's $59 full cost, MSRP. I'm sure that you can get that through at a variety of price points through your FLGS or through an e-tailer of your choice. And this baby ships out on September 19th. So, you know, anytime now. So there we go. Iron Kingdom's role-playing game from Privateer Press. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys later.